Good evening. I call this meeting to order tonight, Lee County Board of Education. At this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. This time, please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, ma'am. Could everybody please check their mics to make sure that they are on the bottom of the mic? Thank you, Ms. Brett. Each December, the Lee County Board of Education reorganizes to pick a chair and vice chair. During that time, I serve as chair of the board until we can pick a new chair. So we are at that time. At this time, I'd like to ask board members seek nominations for chair of Lee County Board of Education.
I'd like to nominate Sandra Bowen.
Mr.
I'd like to nominate Mark Akinosho.
Mr. Akinosho, do you accept?
Yes.
Mr. Akinosho has been nominated for chair, Lee County Board of Education. Other nominations?
I'd like to
Ms.
nominate Sandra Bowen.
Ms. Bowen has been nominated. Ms. Bowen, do you accept?
I do.
Ms. Bowen accepts. Any other nominations? Do I have a motion that we close nominations?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
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 All those in favor of closing nominations?
Aye.
Aye.
All those in favor? At this time, we have two nominations for chair, Lee County Board of Education. I'll go in the order that they were nominated. All those board members in favor of Mr. Mark Akinosho as chair, please raise your hand. Ms. Britt, I count 5. Do you agree? Yes, sir. 5 for Mr. Akinosho. All those in favor of Ms. Bowen, please signify by raising your hand. I count 2, Ms. Britt. Is that correct? The number is 5-2. Mr. Akinosho. Mr. Akinosho, congratulations, Chair, Lee County Board of Education.
Thank you. I want to thank everyone for your nomination and for your vote. I will try my best not to disappoint you. Thank you very much for giving me another chance to lead this board. It's not been an easy job, but I'm so glad that we continue in what we are doing to better the school system. Thank you. At this time, I will want a nomination for the vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Mr. Patrick Kelly for vice chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a nomination. We have a second. Do you have any other nomination?
I'd like to nominate Sandra Bowen for vice chair.
We have a second nomination. Do we have a second for Ms. Bowen?
Second.
Okay. We'll go like the first wave. We're going to vote on Mr. Kelly first. All people in favor of Mr. Kelly, can you signify by raising your right hands? We have 5 for Mr. Kelly. At this time, all in favor, the people in favor of Ms. Bowen. At this time, I want you to raise. We have 2. Congratulations, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you.
At this time, we will go into the public comment. We'll have Mr. Jim Womack come forward and speak to the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jim Womack. I live at 1615 Boone Trail Road here in Sanford, North Carolina. I read with interest the resolution that was being proposed for passage tonight by the board that was on the agenda for Dr. Smith to explain. It expresses disagreement with the state's mandate to reduce school class sizes on the schedule that's been passed into law, Session Law 2017-9 this year. Similar attempts to try to delay or to eliminate the class size reduction have already been attempted this year and failed as late as October of this year. So here we are tonight proposing to pass a resolution that again resists state law. Forgive me if I simply don't understand why we want to spend time doing that. We all know collectively that reducing class sizes in K through 3 education is a smart thing to do. We know that. And we already know that Lee County schools are almost already in compliance. We, by the 2017 DPI statistics, we were in compliance at kindergarten, second and third grades already this year. And that we only lacked by 2 students on average compliance in the first grade. Now I grant you that multiplied across the entire school system that might equate to maybe 2 or 3 additional elementary school teachers, but that should be easily accommodated with the funding that we have. And the classroom space is there, especially if we can move around some of the pre-K training that's done in our elementary schools. I believe that we can get fully in compliance without having to pass a resolution, without having to squirm around with state statutes. It just seems to me, in my 40 years of military experience and in business experience, that rather than resisting what you've been told to do by people in authority, you should actually try to find creative and innovative ways to make those changes, to accommodate those changes, and that you should do those with vigor. That's what we've been told to do. The county is an extension of the state. When the state law says we should comply, then we should comply. Now, our failure to get in compliance with state law has penalties. According to Session Law 2017-9, if we don't get in full compliance this coming year, 2018-2019, then they will withhold the superintendent's very high salary from payment to the school system. In addition, it might give a legal basis to some parents to school the school system. We don't need any more lawsuits in the school system. I think most of you are aware of just how costly the Leandro case was down in Hope County and how it sent perturbations through the entire school system in the state. So I think it's high time we look at doing creative things like retraining the teachers that are necessary or going out and securing the necessary K through 3 teachers that are required either with either hiring or training within the appropriate pedagogy and classroom management skills that are going to be required. Please table the proposed resolution tonight or substitute one that supports the state law and advocates for getting in compliance as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Womack. At this time, we will go to the review of the ethics policy. We're going to ask Ms. Bowen to read our vision statement. Okay. Ms. Livingston. Read that.
Mr. Chairman, the vision statement for Lee County Schools. Pardon me. Lee County Schools, in partnership with the community, will provide challenging learning experiences for students in a safe and supportive environment. We are committed to the academic excellence, technological innovations, social responsibility, and lifelong learning. Our success will be demonstrated by the achievement of our students and their positive participation in society.
Thank you.
Code of Ethics for School Board Members, Policy 2120. The board recognizes that collectively and individually, all members of the board must adhere to an accepted code of ethics in order to improve public education. Members of the Lee County Board of Education should avoid conflicts of interest and appearance of conflicts of interest as we handle the work of the board. Avoid the solicitation and or acceptance of gifts in return for advice or assistance on matters concerning the operation of the business of the board. Avoid the misuse of public funds. Avoid misrepresentation or falsification of facts, and avoid making confidential information public. The board accepts the Code of Ethics established by the North Carolina School Boards Association.
Thank you. At this time, since we just finished our reorganization, I will ask us to sign the new ethics. Ms. I want us to sign the new ethics statement that we have for today. Mr. Superintendent, do we have it?
I believe at each seat, I believe so, yes, sir.
I have so many. Okay, thank you. So I will ask the board members at this time to sign, if you agree with it, to sign the code of ethics for the school board.
Mr. Chairman, I think everybody will remember we just did this 2 months ago. And by the way the statute is written, it was just made sense to put it at this time of year every year.
So
So
that we can-
that's why it seems like, didn't I just do this? Yes, we did.
It's just for the
Thank
compliance
you very
now.
much. Yes.
So-
They tickle in my throat, I'm sorry.
I'll get them all, Susan. We're good.
Okay. At this time, I will want to have a motion for the approval of the agenda for 12/12/2017.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the agenda of 12/12/2017 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried and the agenda is approved. Thank you. The next thing we have is the approval of the minutes for 11/6 and 11/7. I
Mis-
want a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of 11/6/2017, 11/7/2017.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve the minutes of the student appeal on 12/4/2017 and the personnel appeal on 12/4/2017.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we have all of that approved. At this time, we have the chairman's report. I want us to keep Miss Manuel in prayer. She was involved in an accident this evening. She's the principal at Wesley Middle School. So I want us to keep her in our prayers as she's in the hospital at this time, or maybe recuperating. The superintendent have been with her this afternoon. So do
And-
we have any update?
Happy to report that I believe she'll be released from the emergency room this afternoon, this evening.
So thank God for that. Also, I want to, at this time, I want to say Merry Christmas, because this is our last meeting before the end of the year and before Christmas. So, as a Christian and as a person who is a pastor also, so I just want to say Merry Christmas to everyone, and I want to say Happy Hanukkah too to our Jewish brethren also. So just want to say that to you. At this time, we're going to have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to ask Dr. Jim Atkinson to come forward to award the Clean School of the Month.
I'd like to say good evening, everyone. And this is the first time we've had the honor of awarding the Clean School of the Month award to a high school. And I want to be the first one to say congratulations to Southern Lee High School for capturing that award and having the Clean School Award for this month. So I'd like to bring up Dr. Dossenbach and his staff to say a word or two to you. And while he's coming, I'd also like to congratulate all the other schools. We had 9 schools, I believe it was, that scored over 96, and everybody scored over 90. So we are very proud of all of our schools, but we want to congratulate Dr. Dossenbach and his staff. Congratulations.
Thank you very much for this recognition. I do want to say a few words. When Miss Britt let me know, I asked, was she sure? And it's not because I didn't think our group was capable of such. High school is a different ball game. We have more classrooms, more gyms, locker rooms. 1,200 students and over 100 adults. We have games that last until midnight, and the first bus arrives about 6:45, so we are open almost 24/7. I think it's important to note that our team did this being down one custodian, so they rallied together and made it happen. We've had a lot of accomplishments this year at Southern Lee,
Yes.
and we are extremely proud of this one because it takes a clean environment, a clean school, to make those successes possible. I can't stand here and take credit. The two on my left and right, Mr. Chuck Guin is our head custodian, and Ms. Colvin is our assistant principal of the year, by the way, who oversees our custodians, and they do a wonderful job, and I think it's only fair that they have an opportunity to speak as well.
Thank y'all very much for the award. I'm very blessed. It's the staff who got the award. I'm very blessed with the staff I have. No offense to any of the other schools, but now everybody knows just how hard they do work. I've told them that since I started. They're the hardest working people I've been with. I think now everybody gets to see that. But it's not just them. It's Ms. Colvin, Principal Dawson. Anything I've ever needed, I get from them. And we get a lot of support from the school. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
I'll just say I am grateful to work with a staff that is committed. When Dr. Dawsonbach gave me the challenge of working with the custodians, we had to have a culture shift in the building. And so the staff rallied around our custodians and they became custodians. You know, there was a time before where they were considered janitors or something of, you know, and that's okay, but we had to talk about the fact that these are custodians. They take custody of our building. And that culture change, that shift, helped to create the award that we're getting tonight. So it was definitely a team effort, and I'm grateful for Mr. Chuck and for Dr. Dawsonbach for all the support that they've given, and for the board for even offering this award. And we're really happy to be the first high school to get it. So thank you all.
And also congratulations on your award as Assistant Principal of the Year. Thank you for what you do for Lee County Schools.
I can't promise that we'll bring this back.
Chris, we want you to keep it for as long as you want.
Keep it to the new year. How about that?
Congratulations. Well deserved. I know how hard they work. We're going to have to bump our Superintendent's Extra Effort Award again. We're having scheduling difficulties again, and sickness, actually. Accountability update. We've been having several meetings across buildings and at the district level regarding refining some instructional strategies we've been using. Been meeting with our math, English, and science teachers, and that's been going really well. Had several meetings right before Thanksgiving and also several scheduled this month. So we're pleased with that work that's going on, and really the feedback and best practices we're getting from the teachers at the school level. So very appreciative of that. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bryan. At this time, I will, before we have the committee reports, I told Dr. Coble that he will be giving his report for the conference he went to. So after that, then we'll go to Ms. Livingston to give us the curriculum report. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On October 11th through the 13th, I attended the Fall Law Conference with the North Carolina School Board Association. And I just have a short report I'd like to read. During the week of October 11th through 13th, I attended the law conference in Asheville. It was especially helpful in areas of new school law and government policies that might affect public school operations. Some of these concerns raised I have already shared with our board attorney, Mr. Love, and with the superintendent, Dr. Bryan. There were some things about Title I provisions that caused me some concern, but I found in discussion with these men that they were already prepared and had dealt with some of these concerns in some measure in the recent past. A good portion of the conference naturally dealt with precautions and remedies for particular day-to-day situations that school staff and administrators must deal with in school functions. Of particular interest to me was the report on the opioid epidemic, the potential impact of the opioid crisis on North Carolina's public schools. These were some of the observations that I made as to the effect that these problems may have on all schools. One, as described, the problem primarily affects adults because of the abuse of medications. Families suffer, students are affected. Drug overdose has become the leading cause of death in the United States, with the majority involving opioids. Drug abuse education has been proven effective but needs to be updated and funded. Opioid abuse is more prevalent in the southern rural areas, and 4 North Carolina cities are listed in the top U.S. cities. Wilmington, North Carolina is number 1. Hickory is number 5. Jacksonville is number 12, and Fayetteville is number 18. The primary concerns are physical impairment and possible deaths. The secondary issue is long-term damage to the brain and nervous system of a developing young person. This has been an all too familiar concern with other forms of drug abuse. Early on in my educational career, I was brought to an awareness that practically every extended family group had been affected by drug abuse. That has not changed. While more treatment programs and rehab programs have been developed with limited success, the best treatment continues to be prevention. For a number of years, Lee County sponsored the DARE program. Statistics will never account for the number of drug abuse cases prevented by this program. I was told by the sheriff sometime past that that program had been discontinued because they had no statistics to show its success. In the year that I've been on the school board, I've received a valuable education while observing teachers and administrative staff of our public schools. Teachers, private, Christian, and public, still stand in the gap, protecting and promoting not only academic growth, but also character strengths to enable students to overcome and achieve. There are 4 virtues in Plato's Republic on which society stands: justice, self-control, wisdom, and courage. They're not exclusive to Plato. In their own ways, through school improvement plans and best teaching practices, Lee County teachers and administrators are trying to demonstrate and teach these very same necessary qualities. I'm encouraged this evening, Patrick Kelly has shared with me that he and Sandra Bowen are going to be involved with some other folks about this, and I would hope that any kind of needs, Mr. Chairman, that the school officials or school teachers would request in this area would be something that we can work with.
For sure.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you, and thank you for bringing that information to us. It's very interesting to see that 4 big cities in North Carolina is involved in this. We know it affected all of us. When one of us is affected by one thing, it all affects the whole family here. So the board should give every support to Mr. Kelly. And
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, take 30 seconds to elaborate on that. Myself and member Bowman were asked by City Councilman Chaz Post to join a opioid academic committee, and Dr. Bryan as well, I'm sorry. And we'll be meeting with Josh Stein, our Attorney General of North Carolina, on January the 11th to formalize a local plan to fight this epidemic here in the county. So.
that is a good thing, and it's very important that we support what effort you put in over there. At this time, I will ask Ms. Dr. Ophelia Livingston to give the curriculum report, CNI.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. The High School Curriculum and Instructions Committee met on Wednesday, November the 15th at Lee County High School. Lee County Principal Stephen Ross, Southern Lee Principal Dr. Dawsonbach, Bragg Street Academy Principal Jolanda Jordan, and Lee Early College Principal Ms. Dare presented their school's improvement plans. A copy of each plan is on the file at the central office for your review. Mr. Conway discussed the K-3 classroom size mandate, and no K-3 size can exceed 23 students. In Lee County, all of our regular K through 3 third grade are under the threshold, having less than 23 students. We also have met a district-wide average of less than 20 students across the district. We do meet those guidelines as well. The classrooms that do not meet the threshold are as follows: PE, art, music, and drama. The state has given the district the opportunity to apply for a waiver for those classrooms. This committee, the Curriculum and Instructions Committee, recommends the full board that they approve such a waiver, and it is part of the consent agenda. I wish to thank Dr. Stephen Coble for facilitating the high school Curriculum and Instructions meeting in my absence. The middle school C&I committee met on Wednesday, December the 6th at Sandley Middle School at 3:30. Dr. Andy Bryan gave his report on the state-mandated advisory council member list. Also, Sandley Middle School teacher Ms. Marcello presented her best practices on changing the culture of reading. Her presentation was outstanding, and several teachers had questions during the Q&A time. Ms. Marcello went on to state that there are no rewards for her students, but lots of positive motivation. I want to wish at this time all teachers, parents, staff, and the central office personnel a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and all of the other different religions that we want to celebrate as well. May your time be filled with joy, good food, and happiness during this holiday season, and I look forward to working with all of you in 2018. Mr. Chair, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Livingston. At this time, we will go through the facility and technology. Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Facilities and Technology Committee met on November the 28th. We had a fairly short agenda. The first item on our agenda was the earnest money that was paid by Mrs. Bonnie Fashy to buy the project house was discussed, and after staff presented us with the facts and that surrounded what had happened to Mrs. Fashy, the committee decided to refund that earnest money to Mrs. Fashy. And that, of course, is on the consent agenda. Chris McNeil reported that the Floridale Night parking lot expansion is complete. I haven't been over there to see it, but I think we should all go and look. And the Lee County High School baseball field lights are now complete, as are the lights that were put on the football field previously. We had a brief discussion on the parking lot gate that's next to the maintenance building in the parking lot of Lee County High School student parking, and it sounded as if that was a hazard, and we agreed with Chris McNeil that gate should be removed. So we approved removing that gate to get it out of the way of as a hazard, and I see Dr. Atkinson shaking his head, so it sounded like we did a good thing. The next F&T committee meeting will be on January 23rd, 2018 at 4 p.m. on the second floor conference room. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We go to Finance, Dr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, thanks again. The Finance Committee did not meet in November or December, and we do not yet have a meeting date for January. That is correct? January the 25th. So our next meeting will be January the 25th, and rest assured the budget season is beginning, so we'll be busy again. And that concludes my report on the Finance Committee, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, I will ask Ms. Bowen, Sandra Bowen, for policy.
Mr. Chair, the Policy Committee met on November 30th with a single item on the agenda, and that is the cafeteria plan resolution that you have before you on the consent agenda this evening. This is for the purpose of sending out RFQs for our cafeteria benefits plan and getting a comparison analysis out to a committee of staff to review and then to bring back a recommendation to this board. It has been quite a while since this has gone out for qualifications and for bid. And so that's the purpose of the resolution before us this evening. That was the only item on our agenda, and our next meeting is scheduled for December 14th.
Okay. Thank you. At this time, we will go and to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. We have the resolution for we've done that. We have a resolution for flexible spending.
That being on the consent agenda for
It's
this
on-
evening,
okay,
that is
that's good.
approved.
It's approved, okay. The unfinished business now. Second reading of the policy.
And please, I think you got me. I just realized I'd closed the tab I needed. This was that meeting that everybody was glad was over. Tonight we have for second reading this very long list of policies. And at this time, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the second reading of the following policies. Policy 1510/4200/7270, Policy 3110, 3230/7330, Policy 3300, Policy 3460, Policy 3530, 3540, 3620, 4040/7310, 4240/7312, 4525/6125, Policy 4600, Policy 6321, Policy 6340, 6410, 6420/8720, Policy 6430/8730, Policy 6440 is a deletion, Policy 6442, 6450, 6520, 6560, Policy 7130, 7240, 7510, 7530, 7810, 7900, 7930, 7940, 8210, 8510, 9110, 9115, 9120, and Policy 9400. That's the second reading of these policies.
We need a motion.
That was a motion at the beginning, yes.
All those from state changes, basically.
Yes. That was a motion to approve these on second reading.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion is approved. At this time, we go to the new business, the school calendar. I will call Dr. Dietrich. Sharon Spence.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Dr. Dietrich couldn't be with us tonight, so you have me instead.
Okay.
Before you, you have the 2018-2019 traditional tramway and Lee Early College calendars. These come recommended to you by the calendar committees, and those committees consisted of parents, faculty members, and central office staff. These calendars comply with the state calendar law, including the requirement that we have 1,025 instructional hours. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Board members, if we have no question,
Thank you.
There's a question. Historically, on the traditional calendar, the day after Martin Luther King Day has been a holiday, but then that got eaten last year. I don't remember what the purpose of that was, whether it was election or whatever that got rid of that day. That is not on the calendar this year.
It is not. Traditionally, that has been the day after Martin Luther King has been the day that the high schools have used to change semesters. But Dr. Dietrich talked with Dr. Dossenbach and Mr. Ross, and they decided that they could do it without having to have that day
So
because
on the fly.
the calendar was so tight. That just allowed us to use that day in what would seem to be a better day
Understood.
for the district. But again, if Dr. Dietrich or Mr. Ross wants to speak to that, I'm sure they could. But we had their blessing.
Well,
not to include
as
that
a
day.
parent, I find that to be decidedly convenient. So I myself have off that federal holiday, but never the Tuesday after.
Right.
And so I personally, as a parent, I find it convenient that I don't have to find alternate care for small children on that day.
So that
Quick question, just curious. While we're out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and while some schools are in school, how does that help us or hurt us?
The Wednesday before Thanksgiving has been a long time tradition for Lee County Schools.
Okay.
And it is something that our employees appreciate, especially those who have to travel
Right.
to see their families. And that's kind of, we bring it up to the calendar committee, but it really is a day that I think if you surveyed the staff, that they really want to have that day off.
And for the staff, I'm not advocating take that away. I'm going to put that on the record. I was just curious.
so we don't have any more questions.
I make a motion we approve the calendars as presented.
Okay. Second, we need a second.
Oh, I think we have a question.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure, January the 15th this year is a holiday after Martin Luther King's birthday.
Yes.
Right. Oh,
Yes, sir.
this year's it did.
Correct.
It's a jumping holiday.
So since that's clarified, we have a motion and we need a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion is approved. At this time, we want to go to the Policy 2670 Business Advisory Committee.
We skipped the resolution, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, okay, the resolution.
It is my pleasure to introduce this resolution, and I would like to assure the board that this resolution is not intended to question either the wisdom or the authority of the state legislature. And I don't think anybody in the known world would argue the wisdom of reducing class size. And we have been asked by the School Board Association to introduce this. They have indeed introduced a similar resolution. So having said that, I would like to enter this in the record. Whereas pursuant to State Law 2017-9, local school districts in 2018-19 are required to set class size averages in grades K through 3 that equal the state classroom teacher funding ratios, and will have to meet more restrictive individual class size maximum across those grade levels. And whereas equalizing the average and funded K-3 class size ratio will result in a loss of flexibility to generate state funding for teaching positions in program enhancement courses like art, music, physical education. And whereas in Section 2.1 of State Law 217-197, the General Assembly declared its intent to create a new funding stream for program enhancement teachers starting in 2018 and 19. And whereas even if this funding is provided, there are still classroom space and staffing challenges in implementing the new K-3 class size requirements, which are outlined below. And whereas an immediate reduction of the K-3 class size maximum will worsen what is already a very difficult environment for LEAs in finding licensed and qualified teachers to fill classrooms, most likely leading to more classrooms taught by long-term substitutes or lateral entry teachers who do not have the pedagogy and classroom management training necessary for this age group. And whereas that need for more space for the K-3 class size reduction may create space by moving or eliminating pre-K classrooms, canceling contracts, allowing space in the LEA to other providers for pre-K, or not implementing plans to expand pre-kindergarten. And whereas the immediate reduction in individual class size maximums in grades K through 3 would in turn increase the number of physical classrooms required at these grade levels, adding to already staggering backlogs of school capital needs in many districts. Some districts would have to purchase more modular classrooms, while others would incur substantial additional cost, more classrooms. And whereas Lee County Schools currently has 35 mobile units at elementary schools to accommodate overcrowding, and whereas the class size reduction would create an undue burden on capital funding, And whereas the implementation of 2017-9 will have an immediate adverse impact on Lee County schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Lee County of Education respectfully request the General Assembly simply slow implementation of the K-3 class size reduction outlined in State Law 217-9 through a multi-year phase-in that allows time for the legislature and school districts to address challenges delineated above. That's the resolution, Mr. Chairman, and it certainly is not meant to challenge the wisdom of the laws that the legislature has produced. So I would like then to make a motion, and I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the resolution regarding K-3 class size reduction implementation.
We need a second. Okay, we have a second. Do we?
No discussion.
Yes,
Dr. Coble seconded.
yes. Any discussion before we?
I would like to just remind the board that we just got through going through our ethics. My understanding is this resolution, as presented before, I've seen it in several emails going back and forth from the North Carolina School Board Association. But we also have the National Education Association, and they discuss all the benefits of the smaller classrooms. I do not believe that we as a board have honestly even considered creatively combining the state and local funding resources or allocating resources and personnel to hire and to meet these legal obligations. As individual board members, and the ethics policy that we just read, when something is trafficked through the School Board Association, and I get those as well, it's our job as individual board members, as stated in our own ethics and policy, to do our own research. I sent out over 40 references on how this can be done and the significance of having smaller school classrooms, having classrooms of smaller sizes. The number one thing that kind of stands out from all these things is the broad economic benefit, the benefits that are definitely outweigh the cost. The closing of the racial achievement gap, a 38% reduction in test score gaps in grades K-3, early identification of learning disabilities, fewer special education placements later on. There's improved high school graduations, fewer incarcerations, higher future earnings, increased college entrance taking exams. And there's a smaller gap in taking the college entrance test. There's improved student behavior, there's larger reduction in discipline referrals, and there's no reoccurring annual costs, or very minimal, once the smaller classes are established. My concern with this resolution is that we are basically just taking something that has been followed and sent down one email after another. It has turned into a political statement versus what is best for the children of Lee County. That's all my discussion.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's absolutely nothing political about this. This is merely a request to let LEAs across the state implement this policy, which we all agree is in the very best interest of our students, but do it over an extended period of time rather than have to making all of these as of at the start of the 2018-2019 school year. It's simply an ask to give us time to make it happen.
So this is just a delay.
No, I do agree. I agree with that too, sir. My concern is that this resolution does not put a time restraint on it. If you look at New York and Rochester, they were able to do it within 4 years with no additional cost. There's multiple schools, even throughout the state of North Carolina, that I sent through the email as well. There's 12 schools that have done it as well. Now, if we would have said, within 4 years or the slow implementation, I can understand that. But I saw nothing in the resolution that stated we're willing to do this in a timely manner, without having an end state on it.
Well,
Even if we said 4 years,
that the schedule is certainly not our job. The schedule is up to the state legislature. We're just asking them to implement a process by which we can make it happen over an extended period of time, and they would have to make that decision. We're not in charge of that.
Okay.
I guess the irony of that statement is that they did set the deadline. That's 2018-19. And I'm very interested in if the superintendent would like to speak to any of the numbers that I know we don't typically respond to any public comments, but if it is in fact true that our district is in compliance with the higher, with the expectation, then what purpose does this resolution serve for our students? Does that make sense?
I-
If we're already
sorry.
in compliance with the lower class sizes, is that true?
We each year we have been in compliance with what we need to do. Of course, right now we have a waiver that
For
was
the-
approved tonight for the exploratory classes, for lack
Understood.
of a better term. But the thing that you have not been able or have not had to account for yet is the expansion of that into other grade levels for next year. I'm looking at Mr. Conway back there. And also the expansion of capital needs for next year.
Well, as we're
Which
already
is-
under a construction kind of process, I guess the question still stands for me is if we're meeting the standards currently, and if we're on course by 2019 to open a school, then that will naturally solve our class cap issues, yes? Because we'll already have to staff a new school. The question I have, anytime there's a resolution, I want to know what the benefit of it is to our students, not just to jump on a bandwagon to say, look, we said it too, but whether it specifically applies to and forwards our schools. And I don't necessarily see where that's happening. We can say, yes, I agree with class size reduction, but that's really quite irrelevant. Last year we had the same conversation and they delayed it by 1 year. Now we get this delay and we're asking for another. And it really does seem like we're constantly saying, well, not today, maybe one day. And if we're meeting the standards already, I don't see any reason necessarily to sign a document that says, give us more time to meet the standards.
Mr. Conway, would you like to share some thoughts?
And while he's coming, the resolution indicates that we already have 35 mobile classrooms. To be in compliance at the start of the 2018-2019 school year, how many additional mobile units will we have to have?
Well, has anyone looked at the actual numbers? You know, that's what I'm trying to get at when we were talking about compliance. In kindergarten, the compliance level is 18 to 21. We have 18. Grade 1, we have 16 to 19. We have 18. That's the only one that was different, a shift. Grade 2, we have it's supposed to be 17. It's 17 to 20. Grade 3, it's 17 to 20. And we're actually below, which is 16. That's great numbers, I think.
Can I let Mr.
Yes, sir,
Conway
I'm finished,
speak?
thank you.
Mr. Conway,
We comply with what the state is asking for this year, and that is that our class sizes in K3 be below 23. We cannot go over 23, and then that our system-wide average for grade levels be below 20. We comply with all of that except for in enhancement classrooms, a handful of enhancement classrooms. Next year, we will be expected to meet the 1 to 17 in kindergarten, 1 to 16 in first grade, 1 to 18 in second, and 1 to 18 in third. And we are not currently at that level across the school system. We meet this year's expectations,
But not next year.
Okay,
but not
that's the
next year.
clarification that helps. What plans have been put into place irrespective of this request for expansion? And the reason I ask that is last year I had the opportunity to speak with the superintendent of schools and Mr. Mark Johnson, and he said, you know, the class size thing is what's best for the students. And I think, as you said, we all agree with that. To reduce class sizes is the best thing. He said that if it's just a matter of giving you more time to do it, he said that's a realistic request. He said, however, just asking for more time without making a good faith effort is not going to fly, which is why I think they put this clawback provision kind of, and why they're really big on that, is that if you make no effort to comply and just say, well, what are they going to do? They say, we're going to get you. And so that's the concern I have, is that if we're not showing a good faith effort and say, hey, we would love to meet this, but we don't have the land space for 40 new mobile trailers, or what good faith effort have we made in our hiring and our spacing and our staffing, et cetera, to meet it?
I will think, for me, before I go forward, I would think that the good faith effort is what you just described to us right now, that, we met this year's. And then the coming year, if we still have to get everything, the reason why I will support this resolution is not because of politics. I'm not a politician. I'm about the children. We were doing this to be able to fit everything in and be able to make sure that things are in place. Nobody, even the state law, put a waiver if you need it. So at this time, I feel like this recommendation and the resolution is coming from the staff, and they are the one doing this work. So I would feel like if any board member wants to say something again before we vote on this, we can.
Mr. Chairman, I have one concern. Well, actually two. One is at the end of this year, we're probably looking at 40 mobile units on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have a time limitation on the usability of the mobile units that we already have.
Mm-hmm.
We have a crunch coming up on when the new school building will be available.
Yes.
And we have a population increase that is not slowing down. I think the waiver is simply a request for a little maneuverability and time to get some things sorted out. We have been within the limits all this time,
Yes.
but next year is going to be a definite challenge for them to meet the new criteria.
Yes.
And I think a little elbow room is required, especially when you're looking at PE, art, and drama. These are some things that some folks are holding up as expendable issues in some school systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're necessary.
Very, very.
So I am completely supporting the idea of a waiver so that we can get a little wiggle room for this. We have some circumstances that simply are going to have to be dealt with, not just, we're going to make a law and go with it.
That's why the state themselves did not say it should start immediately. That's why the state gave us a wiggle room. And if we have that wiggle room, it will help the staff who are making this recommendation to us to move further. So in light of that, I don't know if somebody else wants to speak. If we don't have someone else to speak,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I would like to ask Mr. Conway in response to Mrs. Bowen's question, is there an estimate on how many additional classrooms we would need and how many additional teachers we would need to comply with the new regulations? I guess.
I mean,
that's
we're
the
walking
crux of
into
the
a
issue.
budget.
That's
Right.
the crux of the issue.
It's the next stage.
Correct.
Well, to answer your first question that you asked, we made great strides this past year in working towards what we think the state is moving towards. We added teachers in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade to start reducing those class size numbers. We've worked on numbers for the upcoming year, and to comply with these numbers, we're looking at in excess of 20 more teachers probably to reach the ratios that they're requesting.
And mobile units, how many?
We feel like it's for every teacher we add at this
Got to have a
point.
classroom.
Go have a classroom, so
Classroom
another
training.
20 mobile.
And then we're building a new school and all of that. So, and what I would just, the question I want to ask you is how easy it is to find those teachers to fill the classrooms for you. I know you're doing a great job with what we have this year. What do you think the outlook is for recruiting as quickly as possible?
Recruiting is becoming more and more difficult across the state. I never thought there would be an issue finding an elementary teacher to fill an elementary classroom, but that is something that districts across the state are struggling to find. Even elementary teachers are difficult to find. So to find that many more kindergarten, first, second, and third grade classrooms is not going to be as easy as it used to be by any means. And when you multiply that across the state where other districts are having
Everybody-
to find many more than that number. It's going to be a battle out there to find elementary teachers.
And Mr. Chair, may I clarify one other thing, please?
Okay.
This resolution is not coming from staff.
Okay, it's just
This was introduced by Dr. Smith.
by Dr. Smith, okay.
And that in turn, we were requested by the North Carolina School Board Association to join in this resolution that they have presented to the state legislature as well.
Okay. But at this time, thank you for coming forward to explain this to us. I think everyone should base decision on what the staff are telling us for the wiggle room, and other board members feel like we need the wiggle room. Mr. Superintendent, do you think we need the wiggle room? The waiver?
I really think this is a board issue, that the board needs to decide on this issue based upon how you all feel you should move forward with it.
Okay. We have a motion, and we have a second for that motion. Okay, we have a second. Dr. Kobu second the motion. Let's vote on that motion. All in favor say aye.
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 Oppose?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We have 5-2. Okay. We have 2 opposed, 5 approved. So the motion carries. Thank you for your vote. On this, we go to the Business Advisory Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Business Advisory Council Policy 2670 states the board will receive assistance from a Business Advisory Council in the performance of its duties to provide career and technical education instructions, activities, and services. In accordance with the requirements of state law, the Business Advisory Council will serve the board by identifying economic and workforce development trends related to the training and educational needs of the community and advocating for strong local career and technical education programs, including career pathway development that provides work-based learning opportunities for students and prepares students for post-secondary education, educational certifications, and credentialing for high-demand careers. The Business Advisory Council is required to have at least 9 members, the majority of which must be business, industry, and community members. The following are ex officio members: superintendents and designee, CTE program director, president of the community college or designee, and a principal assigned by the superintendent. The initial term of the council will begin January 1, 2018. The Curriculum and Instructions Committee discussed nominees to the Business Advisory Council and recommends the following. Ex officio members are Dr. Andy Bryan, Dr. Bud Marchant, Gary Hart, Stephen Ross, and Dr. Chris Dawsonbach. Voting members appointed by the Lee County Board of Education are Ashley Bill, Pam Glover, Tina Gross, Bill Horner, Jason Howard, Ricky Hurtado, Bob Joyce, Tony Lett, Meg Moss, Jerry Petley, Brent Sloan, Joy Thrash, Will Wilkinson, and Robbie Yao. At this time, I move that the Lee County Board of Education approve the nominees to the Business Advisory Council as presented.
Second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is approved. At this time, we will have a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chair, before I make that motion, I'd like to wish everyone Merry Christmas, as everybody else has, and say a couple of things about in the last month how I've been able to take part in DECA interviews and work with our NAF people that come down from Dallas and spend a day with them and read to the 5th grade at Broadway. And it's been a fun-filled month for me. And I thank everyone's vote of confidence for Vice Chair again for the following year. And it's been a wonderful first year here on the board and enjoyed working with everyone here. So, with that, I make my famous motion that I move that the Lee County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, and not a public record under North Carolina General Statute, Section 143 through 18.11A1.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion is approved. We are in closed session now.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion. We come out of closed session.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the personnel report presented.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, before I make the most important motion of the night, I'd like to say thank you to Chris McNeil for putting us power while we're up here so we can plug in our iPads and our phones and keep them charged while we're up here. He's already left the building, but he'll see that soon enough. I make the most important motion of the night, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 The motion is approved.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.